What is up? We are back. Welcome to part 4 of the series, which is tucking the engine bay of the LS swapped 300ZX. Now, in the last video, I finished up the trunk with the dual battery setup. Check out that video if you haven't seen it already. I started to make a bracket for the power steering pump, and Lucas made a bunch of progress on the wiring harness, which I took some video of and forgot to include in the last video. It is absolutely insane how far it has come and how much simpler the wiring is looking. There used to be a giant cluster of wires coming through the fender here, and now most of that is gone. There was also a big cluster of wires coming across the frame rail, and that is completely gone now. The power steering pump bracket is supposed to be arriving today, so I am gonna play with that a little bit. And my other main focus for today is the cooling system. Now, here's the thing. I've always had trouble with the cooling system ever since we did the swap in this car. And I think that comes down to a design flaw in the setup. Through talking to several people about it, I learned that the pusher and puller fans cannot overlap each other, because then they're just gonna be fighting each other and cause problems with airflow. And if you take a look at my setup, that is exactly how it was. See, I had these two fans, pusher and puller fans. So I went to grab the radiator and I spilled a bunch of coolant. Not really surprising though. Well, shit. I have this pusher fan and this puller fan. Now, based on just the sizes of these fans and the size of this radiator, there is no way that these can possibly not be overlapping like 70%. So that's gonna cause really poor cooling. And now that I see this, it's obvious. That is probably most of the reason I was having cooling issues. In addition to that, I got this kit. Basically, this kit has piping. It connects to your radiator cap, and then it sits up high above the engine so that you can fill this with coolant and effectively bleed the cooling system. So what is my plan with the cooling system now? What are we gonna do different? Well, for one, we're gonna properly bleed the system, and I think having air bubbles in the system could have possibly been part of the problem, along with the fans overlapping. So I've got this bigger radiator, and I've got a fan shroud for the back, so I'm gonna have two puller fans. So I'm gonna use this one spow puller fan, and then I actually got a matching spow puller fan. So we have two identical fans that are both going to be pulling. They're not going to be overlapping at all. And with the cooling system properly bled, it should be good. Also, another little quick side note, I got this today. So for my windshield wiper cowls, I have not had a passenger side for a while because it completely broke apart a while ago. And then for the driver's side, I've got this old brittle, sort of cracked in multiple places, about to come apart, and just like the plastic is in really rough shape. The car obviously sat outside in its previous life. Rubber seals just toasted. So I got a new driver and passenger side cowl, and these are beautiful. And it may be kind of hard to tell on video, but these are like, it's sort of like a sparkly gray. It's really pretty. And the plastic is like all pliable and nice, fresh rubber. What an upgrade. Along with that, oh my gosh, I just kicked the fender. Along with that, I replaced my green T-top, and I got a Glacier Pearl white T-top. So now it's all one color. Now we just got to put the car back together with less wires. But I won't waste any more of your time, so without further ado, let's get into it. So my first order of business for today is to really figure out where we're going to mount this radiator. Okay, so starting off, this radiator is sitting a little too high. And I can see here that there's these tabs that the old radiator sat into. And I'm thinking maybe I have a plate coming off the bottom of this cross here, and then this attached to the posts, because this has smaller posts in the middle here coming off the bottom of the radiator. And if we had a plate coming straight off the back there, we can have it sit into that holes in that plate, and that'll allow it to sit a little bit lower if we remove these. But then I had an even better idea. What if the radiator slid in at an angle and laid forward? So I was just reading online that radiators leaning forward can actually be beneficial. I was looking to see if it's a problem if I wanted to lean the radiator like this in the car, and it actually can be helpful with cooling. So I'm gonna see what kind of space we have if I'm to put the bumper on. And maybe I cut out some of this metal around the headlight, and then we can just slide the radiator in like that. In theory. And then that would give so much space up front in the engine bay here versus it being super tight otherwise. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark roughly what I think needs to be cut out in order to make this happen before Lucas gets here to tell me that I shouldn't do it. And then maybe if I can make it look good enough before he gets here, I can get him on board with it. Dude, this would be sick. All right, let's get the cutoff wheel. The headlight should just... Nice. Now we can do some damage. Okay, that is out. So how would this fit? Ooh. I think this just might work. So with both of these corners removed, it's the moment of truth. Will this fit? I can already tell this is going to be in the way. I can't get down in there. If we got that piece out of the way, I could saw that off a little bit more. It would be so much easier to just delete AC. But a race car with AC would be sick. Okay, now I've gotten the little AC dryer out of the way. Another attempt. And there. Nice and easy. Freaking oil filter is in the way. Dang it. Lucas is right. We need to mount the oil filter somewhere else. Okay, I'll take that out. All right, oil filter is just a little bit out of the way. It's still in there, but just a little bit out of the way. AC line. All these freaking AC lines are so annoying. Okay, I think we need to go a little higher on that cut, a little higher on that cut. And almost how this is coming off at an angle works great. I also just realized this does not have a radiator cap. Let's see what we can do. Oh my God, it's freaking beautiful. So here basically is how the radiator is just sort of laying in there. I think it needs to come up right here-ish. So I need to figure out a better solution for this top connection here that goes to the top of the water pump. And then also, this doesn't have a radiator cap. So there's a way to do systems without a radiator cap on the radiator to where I think you have an overflow tank that sits higher than the radiator and it has a cap. And I guess that is what we will do with this, but I need to figure out exactly how that works so that everything's good with that. But this is sitting pretty nice. I'm gonna cut this right here so it still has a lip, but I can put the hose and clamp it right there, and then that'll literally go right there. That's a really short, easy connection. And then, yeah, so much space in there, which is nice. But we'll have to seal along these edges, get a proper mount to hold it in place, somehow shorten this or angle it so that water can come in, because that's right up sort of against a tube frame on the underside of the bumper there. So we'll need space for a hose to be able to come out. And then I don't think it's just gonna run directly there. I think it's gonna have to have an overflow tank in between. About to do some research on how that would work. I am also able to just barely fit the shroud in there, and pretty much the shroud has to go in first and be sitting higher, and then the radiator can slide in. Next, I am going to install these fans onto the shroud. Need something that does this automatically. Nice. That is sick. Hey. Dude, that's so freaking sick. Dude thinks that we can mount this flat. I keep telling him, dude, that's not how it works, bro. That's not how it works.
Your radiator shroud's too fat.
Yeah, there's like not enough space at the bottom. Oh yeah, this needs to be trimmed as well.
Yeah, like we just cut that, hammer it flat. If you want to use the brake, you can use the brake. That'll solve most all the issues. I was just seeing how.
Dang, yeah, I could honestly take this to my parents' house, put it on the brake, and have that like be tight to that. Problem is, dude, all this stuff's laying on the floor. I keep stepping on it.
Well, that sounds like a you problem there.
Dude.
Starter wire, like this will have to be extended because it's not going to reach anymore.
I won't reach the starter?
No.
That is nice.
Yeah, we just need to have maybe like a little bit of a drain, drill from the bottom, open it up there.
I can do that right now. Yeah.
Command signal, I do believe, to turn the Holly on, because this should be a 10 amp, 30 amp, close enough. I want to say the factory one had 3 10 amp.
So that's
runs.
pretty close. So if I have a 10 amp fuse that blows out, is it safe to put a 30 in there?
No, not at all. There's an add-a-fuse to an add-a-fuse.
Dude. Now I need to get the ECU mounted in the passenger floorboard and the wiring harness run through the firewall.
Make it a game plan.
This guy just showed up and he's trying to sabotage everything we got going on.
We don't have a lot going on.
Gold tequila?
Dude, that's where it's at.
What?
That's where it's at, dude. It's got all the
Dude,
flavor,
turn around.
It's aged.
Turn around, show your gay shirt.
Dude.
Dude, something must have fell down in there and is blocking that. So because Lucas thinks that heat is causing it to not work, we got fiberglass insulated insulation. Fiberglass insulated insulation.
Yep.
Yo, that starter cable. Dang, dude, you heat shrunk the end of the fiberglass. That looks good. That looks hard. Hell yeah. actually decided that instead of having the wiring harness come out behind the engine through the firewall, we'd run it through the fender as well. So this is me drilling a hole for the wiring harness. This is a new day, okay? This is not yesterday. This is a new day. So tonight, I'm using Lucas's impact, and he's not here. And I didn't even ask. But it's a new day. Tonight, I am meeting someone to give them my radiator so that they can weld. I need this inlet welded at a 45-degree angle down instead of a 45-degree angle up. So then also I am about to make a bracket to mount the radiator in the car. The only issue is I need to put this shroud in here so that with the fans on it, I can see where it'll fit and determine the bracket based off of that. But the shroud won't fit in there with the fans on, and the radiator won't fit in there with the shroud on. So I literally have to take it completely apart and put it in here, and then put it together in here so that I can mock this up. And then I'll have to take it back apart again. Take it to the shop, and I gotta bend this shroud up some. So you can see how this is going to fit in here. Just lays in there so perfectly, so evenly, and it's sort of being held in place with the extra material on the side of the shroud there. Now obviously there's a gap here, and today I'm going to go to the shop and try to cut and bend the edges of this so that it meets right up with the edge of the radiator and there's no extra space. It's beautiful. Let's figure out a bracket. So laying under the car, this is what we've got. We need something that can sit where these pegs are and hold these pegs, so a bracket with two holes that far apart, and then really just comes right here, and then I'll probably put like 3 rib nuts to hold it, and I may have it go this entire length so that it sort of seals up the bottom there. We're in the shop. Before we get started with the radiator, the bracket arrived. That is sick. Got the Sin Cut Sin candy and the bracket laminated to some cardboard. This is sick. This is so sick. Okay, so it's gonna be on the car like this. So it needs to be bent like this. Here, line it up with the line. And we're gonna bend her to 90. Make sure the brake is set to 90 first. And now we got a bracket for the power steering. Let's do this radiator. It's just straight down. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use this cutoff wheel, and I'm gonna cut in the seam, and then I'm also gonna cut in a straight line. So I'll do this one first. Nice. And it's still not perfectly filled in, but that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Okay, so then when this is sitting down, there's still a gap right here. So I've got this, which I'm going to sitting down.
Now I left material at the top left so that I could fold it over and have it go over the corner.
Now I'm gonna take this little piece and give it a bend. So it's supposed to be sitting this way, so it'll be bent this way to roughly a 90-degree.
Would you look at that?
Pretty sexy.
Now I'm just gonna trace the shape of this so I can make a mirrored clone for the other side.
The opposite direction, which is this way.
Now I just gotta bend it in the opposite
It
direction.
needs to be roughly right. Sorry, I did not know that that was gonna hit the camera.
And it fits beautifully. I'm a legend. And then I'm just gonna clamp it in place, drill some holes, and rivet it to the body of the shroud. And this shroud turned out pretty good with these aluminum pieces riveted on there covering the bottom corners, but the top corners still needed to be reattached together. So I'm gonna drop it off to get that welded when he welds the new inlet at the top of the radiator itself.
All right, back home with the bracket. All right, so this is the moment of truth. Does this line up at all? Well, let me move this oil filter out of the way. Bruh, these wires, really. Dang, in this bracket, this little bracket. All right, this for real is the moment of truth. Wow, wow, that lines up really nice. Now where's the power steering pump? Okay, so here's the power steering pump. So this is going to hang from the bottom of this bracket. So I'm gonna just sort of pass everything through. Wow, wow, that looks beautiful. That looks beautiful. And then should be mounted right about there. Wow, it came out so good. What a long day. Tomorrow, I'll go and drop this off at powder coat. It should be ready so that I can show it to you by next week's video. That is going to do it for this week's video. Stay tuned for next week.
So I went to grab the radiator and I spilled a bunch of coolant. Not really surprising though.